Resident Evil 6.
Resident Evil 6 was the end of an era, marketed and presented as a finale of sorts for the series players have been following for nearly 16 years at the time. The exciting conclusion to a complicated web of secret organizations, bioweapon mutations, and the people who fought through innumerable terrifying events to bring them all down. But by the time this conclusion arrived, things appeared much different than when they began. Times had been changing for AAA video games in the years leading up to Resident Evil 6's launch, and Resident Evil changed along with it. By October 2nd, 2012, when Resident Evil 6 released, the series had already all but completely shed its fixed camera, tank-controlled, survival horror roots. Resident Evil 4, which performed amazingly and is still widely considered one of the best games ever made, pushed the franchise in more of a cheesy action movie that happens to feature zombies direction, rather than the horror B-movie style that the first few games embodied. Complete with a more lighthearted tone and an emphasis on mowing down hordes of infected, rather than individual rooms with one or two corpses lying around. Resident Evil 5 dove even harder in that direction, making the game a series of stages rather than open explorable areas, doubling down on shooting bad guys and blowing shit up, and even adding two-player co-op for the first time in a main series entry anyway. It's also the first time the Mercenaries really caught on as a popular mode, thanks to the newly added multiplayer. The Mercenaries being a mode that revolves around nothing but killing hundreds of enemies as fast and stylishly as possible. Even though nowadays it's looked down upon by some as the tipping point, it still sold and reviewed extremely well when it debuted, being the best-selling Capcom game of all time until it was passed by Monster Hunter World in 2018. I think you get the idea. Anyone surprised that Resident Evil 6 turned out like it did wasn't paying much attention. Resident Evil 6 was the logical and honestly expected culmination of everything Resident Evil was becoming, not everything it used to be. If that's a good thing or not is up to your interpretation. Speaking of interpretations, I guess I should say where I stand on the series evolution, so you know where I'm coming from here. I've played every main Resident Evil game, but never really partaken in the spin-offs, not extensively anyway. No Outbreak or Survivor or anything, though I have played the Chronicles games.
Resident Evil.
I think the very first game, while immensely important to video game history, has aged terribly, and you should just play the remake for GameCube and every modern system, which is better in every possible way, in my opinion at least.
Resident Evil 2.
I think the second game, while a little rough, is still a good time. Though, like the first game, I much prefer the remake, which I think is honestly one of the best survival horror games ever made.
Resident Evil 3.
I've never gotten to the end of Resident Evil 3 because I find Nemesis random surprise attacks, inventory management, and the fact you're meant to ignore most zombies to conserve supplies incredibly annoying when you don't know where you're going, and have to backtrack constantly back through those enemies when you get lost. I'd presume it's better once you know where you're going and have gotten good with the dodge, but I just haven't bothered. I think the remake is amazing for the first hour or two before it devolves into an obviously rushed set of hallways with chunks of the original game ripped out for no reason.
Resident Evil 0.
Zero is a fucking meme game with a pointless story, a terrible two-character control scheme, and the worst inventory system I've ever experienced in a video game, and I don't have the patience to ever finish it.
Resident Evil 4.
Resident Evil 4 is, rightfully, one of the most celebrated action games of all time. An awesome, tense, and often genuinely humorous adventure with tons of weapon and location variety, and a simple yet satisfying combat system. If I had any criticism, I'm really reaching here. It would be that normal mode is too easy, even when your game rank is pretty high, but professional mode is a joke that requires perfect positioning, a heavy dose of luck, and 100% headshot accuracy that's more frustrating than it is a good challenge. But if that's the only nitpick I have, then you know the game is good.
Resident Evil 5.
Resident Evil 5 is a blast to play in co-op. You and a friend choosing your preferred weapons to make the most of your ammo and small inventory, working together to take out bosses, grinding treasure to earn all the weapons and upgrade them completely. If you play it alone, however, it quickly becomes an exercise in frustration, as your co-op partner wolfs down your items and constantly dies to dumb shit, making you reset the whole level. I wouldn't call it a survival horror game anymore, but that sorta gets into arguably the most important thing you should know about me going into this. I don't find any Resident Evil game scary. Apart from the house demo for Resident Evil 7, I have never been scared of a Resident Evil game in my entire life. I have always viewed Resident Evil as an action series with a horror theme, rather than a horror game. So I think that's why I'm so forgiving with later entries compared to most people. I'm interested in Resident Evil for its stupid, overblown story, fun characters, and gameplay. I don't really care much about the atmosphere, because that's just never something I got out of the games. I go to things like Silent Hill for that. So if you come at me with, I can't believe you're defending this lazy piece of fucking garbage that the shills at Capcom shoved out and killed the entire Resident Evil series with dumb action bullshit. I understand why you would feel that way, but I'm just gonna ignore it because I don't care, and I'm not gonna argue with anyone about this. I've got no dog in that race. Alright, now that you understand my position on things, let's jump into the game itself and get started. When you boot up a copy of Resident Evil 6 in 2021, you're bombarded by dozens of modes and options that all have vague-sounding names that don't make sense at first. This is because the game has added a ton of content over the years, mostly in the form of 100 multiplayer DLCs, but every copy of Resident Evil 6 you can buy on modern consoles, PS4, Xbox One, or Switch, are a remastered version that comes with all that DLC by default. I guess that also means there's no real reason to purchase an original PS3 or 360 version of the game. Unfortunately, the Steam version also still makes you purchase all the DLC separately. We're playing the PS4 port today, but we'll talk about all the DLC modes and stuff later. Let's head over to the main campaign first. Or should I say, campaigns. Resident Evil 6 is the first main Resident Evil game to have entirely separate stories for different characters, rather than a slight variation of the same story, each one having their own stages, narratives, and gameplay styles, and composed of a different classic Resident Evil protagonist alongside a new partner character for co-op purposes. There are 3 choices at the start, or at least there used to be back at launch. Leon Kennedy and his new partner Helena Harper, Chris Redfield and his subordinate Piers Nivens, and the most out-of-left-field return, a now-adult Sherry Birkin, and the mysterious mercenary Jake Muller. Completing all of their campaigns used to unlock a solo story starring everyone's favorite Chinese spy, Ada Wong. After a few updates, however, Ada's campaign was made available automatically from the start, and she was given a nameless agent as a non-canon buddy, so that way all the campaigns could support multiplayer. Structure-wise, we're gonna have to be clever here to save ourselves some time, because I got a feeling this video is going to be another long one as it is. So here's what we're going to do. While all of the campaigns begin differently and have different goals, all of the narratives converge together near the finale into one story where everyone is more or less on the same page. We're going to go over each character's story until reaching that convergence point, at which time we'll talk about everyone as one complete narrative. It'll make sense when we get there. Let's see. Might as well just go through them from top to bottom. That means first up is
bioorganic weapons are a global threat. Start working with the rest of the world. We have to come to my desire to reveal. I'm going to tell them everything. It might create more problems than it's time we take responsibility. We want to have any chance. I've always valued your friendship, Leon.
Stay right where you are.
On June 29th, 2013, at a university in the city of Tall Oaks in New England, the President of the United States, Adam Benford, is planning to hold a press conference where he and the government will finally come clean to the public about Raccoon City, the progenitor virus, and all other nefarious behind-the-scenes bioterror evil of the Umbrella Pharmaceuticals Corporation. We enter the story as an unknown force has instigated a viral outbreak in that very same city, and Leon S. Kennedy, the president's most trusted federal agent and friend, is sent to investigate. By the time Leon reaches the president's office, it's too late. Most of the campus has been mutated into a horde of shambling undead, including Adam himself.
Mr. President! Don't make me do this.
It's all my fault.
On the scene as well is a woman Leon's never met before who apologizes for the president's death, as if she had some hand in it. The two receive a call from Leon's handler, Ingrid Hunnigan, and learn from her that the other agent with him is Helena Harper, a relatively new member of the Secret Service personally selected by the National Security Advisor himself. Hunnigan also warns the pair that the virus is quickly spreading outside the campus at a frightening pace, and they need to get out of the city ASAP. Leon wants to know what's happened and what role Helena played in this new pandemic, but she'll only agree to explain if he follows her to the Tall Oaks Cathedral outside of town.
Adam, I'm sorry. So what's so special about this church? You have some sins to confess?
It's hard to explain. If I don't tell you at the cathedral, you may not believe me.
And with that, we're given control of Leon, or Helena. You're allowed to select whichever character you wish to play as in each mission, and the other character will be relegated to the second console if you're playing online, or the second controller if you're playing split screen. Yeah, I know, a game with fully functional split screen. You never see that anymore. Characters do have different weapons and different abilities, so unlike Resident Evil 5, this is more than an aesthetic change. Leon, for instance, can dual-wield his pistols, while Helena starts with a unique shotgun called the Hydra. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. All we can do right now is walk, but even that has a small surprise for us in the form of proper analog control. Tank controls have been entirely nixed, and you can walk around and strafe in whatever direction you please. Though I believe you can turn the tank controls back on somewhere in the options if you want to for some reason. The reluctant partners make their way through the abandoned campus halls very, very slowly. They just keep going. Until we find a father looking for his missing daughter, who was a student at this academy. And it tells us a lot about our protagonists right off the bat. While Helena, who's already pretty suspicious, remember, wants to abandon him and hurry to the cathedral, Leon insists that they stay and make time to help him first.
Alright, let's find her.
Leon, we don't have time
We're
to-
making the time.
If their intention was to make players wary of Helena right from the get-go, they succeeded because she's pretty unlikable as things stand right now. That's a bold move. Let's see if it plays out for him.
No, 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 no.
The team of agents find the man's daughter in a less than optimal state. You know where this was going.
We're almost there. Liz?
Oh, I'm gonna get some use out of that clip.
Oh my god!
Quickly, let's use this moment in the elevator to teach you about saving your partner. Like most Resident Evil games, the enemies don't attack you directly, they sorta struggle with you at first. On your end, this takes the form of a quick time event, either moving the stick or a timed button press. But if you want to get free instantly, your partner can press the assist button to perform a melee attack and knock the enemy away. They can also try and just shoot it from a distance, but this is less reliable on stronger enemies and obviously wastes bullets. On the topic of bullets, we have free access to our guns now. Let's talk battle prowess while we find a way off this campus. The combat is easily the biggest change and the most contentious aspect of Resident Evil 6. As I said, movement is now a full 360, any direction, whenever you want, even with your gun out. This alone is honestly the most massive buff in the game. Being able to fire at monsters and move at the same time, instead of having to lower your gun, turn around, run backwards, turn around again, and recenter your cursor, dramatically increases the capability of the player. You also now have access to a real crosshair rather than the guidable laser sight from RE4 and 5, though the laser still exists if you want to use that instead. On a physical front, Leon, and by extension everyone else, retains the follow-up attacks that can be performed on stunned BOWs, though it's a little more in-depth than it was in RE4. Follow-ups are still performed on a dazed enemy, but are context-sensitive, in a sense. For example, standing in front of them does some sort of large punch or kick that usually floors the opponent. Sprinting at them first performs some sort of charge, or in Leon's case, a fucking running DDT. If the enemy is holding a weapon, like a 2x4 or a machete, you'll steal it from them and smash it into their face. But that's not where the martial arts end. See that HUD down there in the corner? The large blocks are your health, those smaller blocks are your combat gauge, or in more straightforward terms, your stamina. By expending this meter, you can press the fire button with no weapon drawn to just beat people up. That's right, you are no longer defenseless without ammunition, and yes, I count the knife as defenseless. This is where any semblance of this still being a survival horror game gets Olympic javelin level hurled out the window. These melee attacks are so useful that you'll likely end up using them more than the firearms. They're not particularly damaging on their own, but 2 hits will send the majority of humanoid enemies into a stun state, and most follow-ups are instant kills. But this is really dangerous on higher difficulties, and for clear reasons this becomes less effective against bosses, large enemies, or hordes, but for standard room-clearing antics, the combat gauge is the way to go. As you can imagine, the number and power of the BOWs is significantly amped to account for all these new options you have to deal with them. Back at the plot, Leon and Helena fight their way to the street, where they find a car they can use. You have to fumble around for a spare key for a bit, but Leon does get it started. Unfortunately, Helena has not played Resident Evil 2, and doesn't know that you shouldn't let Leon Kennedy drive in the zombie apocalypse. Sewer time already? That's a good sign. The sewer leads down to an old subway system, where you'll have your first encounter with another controversial gameplay mechanic.
Train's coming!
QuickTime events. This one can be pretty bad if you aren't ready for it. Can't tell you how many times that killed me on my first playthrough. They're usually limited to cutscenes like RE4 and 5, but every once in a while they pop up in gameplay and can really fuck you. I like QTs, so it doesn't bother me, but I know a lot of people cannot stand them, so this is going to be a little irritating for those people. Back on the surface, we skirt by some buildings, finding a shotgun for Leon in the process. This is how weapons are obtained in Resident Evil 6, because the store has been removed. I don't really like this change at all. It removes a lot of the progression and replay value for me. I must have spent 100 hours buying and upgrading all the guns in Resident Evil 5, so it's a real shame it's gone now. There is still a store, technically, only now it houses skills. You can hold 3 of them, and they're purchased with points, which are pickups exactly like the money in the previous games, only they've removed treasures from the equation, instead just having larger skill point statues. This means no selling or combining treasures either. When people complain about RE6, I never see anyone mention all the gameplay removed in relation to the upgrade and shop system, and I find that so weird, because I think it's the part that annoys me the most. Out in the streets, our agents find a Scooby-Doo crew's worth of idiots, and they tag along with us after we save them from a horde by nuking a gas station. Don't worry, they're NPCs in a Resident Evil game. They will be dead shortly. Leon and the Funky Bunch bumble their way into a gun shop that somehow hadn't been raided yet and try to use it to get to the rooftops. The owner responds by slamming a huge metal door in our face and telling us to fuck off and die. Time for a good ol' stand in the building with a dozen windows and don't die because this is a Resident Evil game section.
Shit, my gun's jammed! Give me your gun!
Alright, chums up.
Ready, guys?
Let's do this. Leroy!
Lickers have learned to walk upright, it would seem. The Bloodshot are our first experience with BOWs that mutate a second time in response to trauma. Randomly in Leon's story, killing a standard zombie will cause its outer skin to melt off, leaving behind an angry mass of cartilage and muscle tissue with a literal face full of spiky teeth. They have a much higher tolerance for damage than standard zombies, but they also just pounce at you like an idiot, so it balances out. I dicked around with the cover system here a bit, so I might as well mention it. In the most superfluous waste of resources imaginable, Capcom implemented a half-assed third-person shooter cover system. By pressing X with a weapon out near a viable surface, or sometimes just automatically without you pressing anything, I don't really know, you'll either snap to a wall or waist-high object to hide from gunfire. Then you can pop out and shoot like it's Uncharted or something. What method does the game use to determine if the object is viable for cover or not? I have no fucking idea. The game seems incredibly picky with what does and does not constitute cover, and sometimes even obvious cover objects are very janky with allowing you to snap on. All of that goes out the window, however, when you just realize that even if you could hide whenever and wherever you wanted, this is a game where your primary enemies are either zombies or giant mutants that smash into you. There are enemies later on that fire weapons at you. Oh, we'll get to that shit. But even then, they're often in open spaces, or you're encouraged to just keep moving. This means that the cover mechanic is only even an actual factor in less than 50% of the whole game, and I'd argue only has real use in a single one of the 4 campaigns. Pointless gameplay systems aside, we clear the area around the store of zombies, and the shop owner decides to let us upstairs, where we're attacked by even more infected. Out on the roof, our gang is rescued by a bus I figure is driven by Ted, and much like Transit, we have to fend for ourselves yet again in a hollowed-out bus, losing more baggage in the process. At least that's the worst of it over.
90% of the population in Tall Oaks has been infected with the virus. That rounds out to about 70,000 hostiles. We also received word that an organization named Neo Umbrella just claimed responsibility for the attack.
Neo Umbrella.
That's all the news I've got. Now it's your turn to help me. I need to know what's in that cathedral. I've got suits breathing down my neck for info.
Suits.
Specifically, Derek C. Simmons, National Security Advisor.
Hang on. Grab hold of something!
The fuck bus crashes outside a graveyard, and by sheer plot armor, Leon and Helena manage to survive.
Leon, Helena, are you okay?
Yeah. For whatever reason, we're still alive.
The only people out here are actual rotting corpses, which is good for us. Most zombie fiction seems to forget to account for the decay of dead bodies, but in Resident Evil 6, these zombies are much weaker than the more recently created ones from the campus. For some reason, there's a million open graves around here, and if you so much as tap the run button within a 50-foot radius of one, you'll automatically fall in. Doesn't matter if you were anywhere near the hole or not. There's also 2 new enemies introduced in rapid succession around here, so let's get to them. We've got the series staple zombie dogs, looking pretty much the same as ever. Small, fast, jumpy. They're a nothing threat this go around, not just thanks to better movement, but to another new mechanic that sounds busted at first, but is much more underwhelming in practice. That'd be the quick shot. Pressing the fire and aim buttons together causes your character to instantly lock on to the nearest enemy and fire off a shot. Don't worry, this is both more helpful and less helpful than it seems, somehow. This shot consumes a bar of the combat gauge and freezes you in place for a second, but has a higher than normal chance of being critical. I'm sure some speedrunners or something have found a use for this, but as far as I'm concerned, it's for killing dogs. The quick shot is nearly always a one-hit kill on mutant dogs, so just do that and save the rest of your stamina for kicking things. Ow. Shriekers are really good at yelling. This is a totally original and unique enemy type for a zombie game. Don't Google it. There's a parasite of some sort in their neck that wails out a cry for help that also stuns the player, alerting all potentially hidden zombies in the area to your location and making them sprint for you. You'd think you should shoot them in the big glowy throat thing to kill them, but that just makes them yell when they die anyway. Best to shoot them somewhere else if you're not ready to get swarmed yet.
What the hell are we doing? My son, Marco. He's in the PSAA. You watch. He'll be here with the whole army any minute now.
Inside the cathedral, what I can only describe as Resident Evil stuff happens. Leon and Helena work together to explore the church and find the not a key but definitely should be a key objects that they need to open the secret door beneath the altar. There's some co-op usage of the laser sights to light up a series of mirrors, a trap where each player has to run around their side of the room and disable the arrow-spitting statues, and lastly, Leon grabs a sniper rifle and we use it to manually ring all of the church bells outside. Time to go discover those answers Helena promised us. Oh lord, he coming! Or rather, she. Lepetitsa, which I have to consciously not call Lepetitia, look at that spelling, are bloated gas sacks covered in holy pustules with a head that splits open like a watermelon. So, of course, they're named after Lepetitsa, which means beauty in Serbian. Never say Capcom guys don't have a sense of humor. Why doesn't the gas affect the protagonist? Stop asking dumb shit and start shooting. Lepetitsa is a mini-boss type enemy, and as such has a crap load of health. It primarily attacks by secreting clouds of infectious nastiness that drain your health and convert the church survivors into zombies. Don't bother trying to melee it unless it's already stunned for a follow-up, because it doesn't really care for you trying to smack it around and will retaliate by throat-fucking you. This is an instant kill if your partner doesn't revive you, or your health is already in the danger state. As one would expect from this franchise, there's a secret bioorganic weapons lab beneath this cathedral. Gotta split up for a bit, some back and forth with switches, and hey, the door's open.
Wait, I remember this place. Deborah must be close.
Who?
Please be okay.
In a rather important-looking office, Leon and Helena find a videotape with the baffling title, Happy Birthday, Ada Wong. I have to censor this video a bit for nudity reasons, but it's, not pleasant.
Ada. Is this what you wanted to show me?
No. I thought...
What the hell did I just see, Ada?
So that woman or whatever. You know her?
Kind of. Yeah.
Down in the catacombs, yes, catacombs, don't question the infinite depth of the caves under this small American town, the agent duo finds a woman just kinda sitting there.
Deborah! Deborah! Can you hear me?
This practically comatose woman is Helena's sister, Deborah, and saving her is the main reason she forced Leon to come out here with her. Deborah was taken away by an unknown group to force Helena's compliance in triggering the C-virus outbreak back at the university, explaining why Helena apologized for the incident earlier. It's explained in some lore file that Helena distracted the president's guards, while a Lepotitsa was unleashed onto the building to infect the president.
Helena? Thank goodness.
Okay, enough with the mystery. What the hell is going on here?
Deborah, stay with me, all right? No, Deborah! No. No, this can't be happening.
Ada.
As the battle begins, who should swing in to help but Ada herself? Leon is understandably confuzzled by the whole situation, given that tape we just saw, but for now the three work together to stop Deborah.
These walkways won't hold. We need to get to the lower levels.
So sorry, Deborah. It's all my fault.
Helena! Get away from her!
Stop! Don't shoot, please!
Boy, it sure is a good thing she's still vaguely hot instead of turning into a pile of blood and eyeballs like everything else around here. Hashtag don't fuck the slime lady. Mutant Deborah, that's her name, they didn't think of anything else, despite not looking the part, couldn't possibly be more of a Resident Evil boss. Weird tentacle things with glowing orange weak points, you know how it is. You'd think Umbrella would have bred that little feature out by now. Did somebody say features? Why, yes I did, so let's discuss one. Well, a theoretical one. 3 and 4 player co-op. At many points in the campaign, two of the stories will intersect, allowing for a very unique gameplay element to activate. I'm unsure if this feature is even still active, but I know it used to work. If two groups of players are playing online and both reach one of these crossover points at around the same time, the two sessions will temporarily merge and allow all players to work together. For example, had someone been playing as Ada and been about to fight this boss in her story, me and my co-op buddy would have been able to join games with that person and the three of us would fight the boss as a group. This is such an amazingly cool concept that is unfortunately now basically dead thanks to the low player count. One might be able to coordinate with a group of friends to time things between the four of you, but I'm unsure what the success rate would be on that. What's going on back there? Oh Christ, this fight is still going. Die already, you greasy bitch.
No more tears. Not until I avenge your death. Please. Forgive me.
I, for one, am absolutely devastated at the loss of this character who didn't have a single line of dialogue, whose only emotional connection is to a different new character whose personality has ranged from a singular piece of untoasted white bread to kind of a jerk sometimes. Don't get me wrong, Laura Bailey goes all the way on the desperate screaming, and she does a great job like always, but even her delivery cannot save the nothing of a character that is Helena.
I didn't know what else to do. So I helped him. I helped Simmons breach the president's security.
That sounds like Simmons, all right.
Why the hell would he do all this?
Long story. We're up against the people who really run this country.
Yes, Ada was serious. Neo Umbrella is run by the Illuminati, though in this universe they're called the Family.
Leon, where are you?
Simmons there.
Yes.
Hunnigan, you need to be careful. I think he's the one who did all.
Hear my name.
Simmons.
The president spoke highly of you, Agent Kennedy.
Likewise.
He told me you've been friends for 30 years.
Tell me, is it true you were the only ones present at the time of his death?
What are you saying?
Well, you must be aware that you are both
Suspects in this attack.
What?
Agent Harper,
At the time of the attack, you had abandoned your post.
leaving the president vulnerable.
You must admit such behavior is suspicious.
You son of a bitch!
You're the one who planned all this!
With what evidence could you base such an outrageous accusation?
The two of you.
Feel so strongly about your innocence. Then you should have no problem turning yourselves in.
I'm gonna make him pay.
Looks like things just went from bad to worse.
After I have myself a good cry at the loss of what's-her-face, it's time for more catacombs! Where is this in America? We're supposed to be in New England. Why are there giant European-style death chambers here? Pushing that aside, this area is pretty fun. I've mentioned before, but I enjoy the co-op heavy levels, and this is certainly one of them. There are twisting flamethrowers, rising spear traps, spinning ankle blades you have to slide under, resurrected corpses covered in armor. All that while trying to hurry and open the next gate or deactivate the next obstacle for your partner so they can move ahead and help you. I'm just a sucker for this sort of shit, I guess. I like playing together and doing different challenges to help each other out. It feels like you're a team rather than just two people who happen to be playing at the same time. We quick time around with a giant fish boss for a bit, Leon suffers from severe PTSD, and we blow the entire cavern to hell on the way out.
He's sterilizing the area.
And destroying the evidence.
Leon calls Hunnigan to warn her about Simmons, only to discover that Simmons has left for Lanshan, China in a hurry.
We need to stop Simmons and take him into custody right away.
We have no evidence. And right now, you two are on the top of their list of suspects.
No.
Listen, Hunnigan. I need you to fake our deaths.
Can you do that?
What?
Of course. But they'll figure it out eventually. What are you going to do?
We're going to China.
Hey, you're not a flight attendant.
You don't suppose I think I can fly a plane, do you?
The final gun of Leon's story is available here, the Lightning Hawk, which is a 50 caliber handgun based on a Desert Eagle. As expected of all Magnum-type weapons in Resident Evil, it's the most powerful weapon you have regular access to, with the lowest ammo drop rate, making it more or less a boss-exclusive weapon. Chasing this fat bastard around the plane, our heroes end up in the cargo bay and toss that sumbitch out the loading door. A few QTEs later, and
Jesus Christ, how much worse can this get?
Oh, that's bad. Crashing plane is very, very bad. Out of options, Leon is forced to take the pilot's seat while Helena protects him from the now zombified passengers. Hunnigan assists, but it's not enough to offset the fact that Leon has no fucking clue what he's doing.
Leon, pull the throttle! Pull up!
How many levers does it take to fly this thing?
So after playing the plane section a second time,
Another round.
Hard to find a good steak around here. Not like back home.
sometime around mid-2013, in a bar near the country of Estonia, a broken husk of a man sits drunk at the counter. This man was once the most celebrated hero in the fight against bioorganic terror, an ex-member of the STARS Alpha Team and captain of the BSAA, Chris Redfield. Now he sulks alone, with little more than fleeting traces of his memories. Memories of whatever traumatic event has turned him into this belligerent amnesiac. The story gets moving when Chris is approached by a young man in a BSAA uniform named Piers Nivens. No, not Pierce. Piers. I don't fucking know. Piers claims to have been a member of Chris's team and begs for him to come back to the organization. Something bad is happening in China, and they need the legendary Chris Redfield.
Never heard of you.
How about this? You heard of this?
What is that?
You really don't remember anything, do you? Bioterrorism. You can't hide from your past, Chris. No matter where you go or what you do.
Who are you? What is this?
Okay. You don't remember me? Well, how about them? Look. I said look! Those were your men. Men who died under your command. You owe it to them to remember, Chris. If you walk away now, then this was all for nothing. Enough! Damn it. 6 months of searching for you. And this is what I find.
BSAA.
Yeah. It's where you belong. Everyone's waiting.
Everyone.
We're taking you back, Captain. One way or another.
A few days later, Chris, accompanied by a new team, including Piers, flies into the city of Wai in Lanshan. God, these names are gonna kill me. I'm sure I'm getting them all wrong. To investigate a new bioterrorist threat and rescue the United Nations members that have been taken hostage inside a towering multi-floor complex. This is where things start to go downhill, and people I've talked to seem to agree. Chris's story is entirely action-focused, playing closer to a Gears of War game than anything else. While Leon had elements of extreme action, it still felt like that base of Resident Evil 4 was in there somewhere. Chris's story is all about shooting, with not a drop of survival horror to be found. This change in direction is reflected in both Chris's equipment, he starts the game with a fully automatic assault rifle, and in the primary enemy type found in Chris's scenario, the Joavo.
It's healing itself.
The Joavo are like the next step past the Ganados and the Magini, still being terrifying zombie mutants, but retaining enough intelligence to make plans, coordinate, and use weaponry. They're born through the use of the newly created Chrysalid Virus, or C virus, a virus that inflicts its victims with a mixture of the T Veronica virus, which was created to allow the infected to remain intelligent, and the G virus, which causes the victim to physically mutate into more powerful forms. Inhaling trace amounts of the C virus creates the zombies seen in Leon's scenario, but concentrated injections of C create the Joavo. Contrary to their diseased nature, the Joavo mostly appear as masked men that are more or less entirely human, wielding either machetes or some manner of automatic firearm. The simple fact that they can use guns makes them the worst enemy type in the whole game. I know I said maneuverability has been greatly enhanced, but not that much. Most gunfights either take place in tight alleys where there's no space to dodge bullets, or large open areas where there's nowhere to hide. Your options are to move as much as you can, stun them with limb shots whenever you can, and take them out quickly. Or use the cover system. Chris might possibly get in cover if he feels like it, and sometimes the cover doesn't even protect you very much. It's best to just eat the damage and play normally, then bother with it. You're going to be healing a lot, but... Oh, healing. I haven't explained that yet. Healing works differently in Resident Evil 6 compared to any other game in the series. There are still first aid sprays that bring your health to max, and there are still green herbs that you combine with red herbs. The change is that now herbs are converted into tablets that are placed in a case your character carries around with them. You can hold, I want to say 18 tablets in the case at a time, and each one restores a single block of health. You can use these whenever you want without pausing, since it's tied to a dedicated button, which I figure was done to keep the pace up during co-op. Players can also use the tablets in their case to heal their partner if they've been downed. You can keep extra tablets in your inventory, but as we'll see in a bit, your inventory can get pretty cramped later on.
All clear. Captain!
Let me tell ya, whoever's playing as Piers better like sniping. Unlike the co-op sections of the other stories, most of Chris's co-op scenarios are just Piers snipes while Chris does a thing. Despite playing this game a dozen times, I've never played as Piers, but I'd imagine this gets old after a while for him. The team climbs up to the rooftops where they come face to face with the Joavo's secondary gimmick. The Joavo don't just use guns, they also mutate in response to physical damage. Much like RE4 and 5, random enemies will burst apart and transform into some manner of awful, disgusting body horror. In the case of the Joavo, what mutation occurs is dependent on where they're most heavily damaged. There's like a dozen possible mutations, but for some examples, if you blow off its arm, it'll grow it back in the form of a fleshy shield. If you shoot it in its torso, it'll develop scales on its body that deflect bullets. And if you blow its legs off, more mutations occur as the story progresses, and some limbs have multiple possible transformations. Chris and Piers bust into the building, clear out the gangs of Joavo protecting the place, and save the hostages, capping it off by ordering in an airstrike to destroy any remaining hostiles. Mr. Redfield's Vietnam flashback brings us to about 6 months ago, Christmas Eve in Estonia. I don't know if they meant for it to be Estonia, which is an actual country that exists and kinda looks similar, or they just made up a random country because who cares. Chris, Piers, and a squad of fellow BSAA members are using the most unnecessary map device in the world to plan out their next move as they try to eliminate the literal army of Joavo that have been sent to invade the city by an organization called Neo Umbrella. Well, I guess it's not technically Neo Umbrella. Neo Umbrella supplied the rebels who are fighting against the country's government with the C virus. It doesn't really matter.
You're the rookie, huh?
Yes, sir. Finn McCauley, sir.
I know you're nervous, Finn. The team's got your back, okay?
Yes, sir. I'll give this everything I've got.
Oh, that's precious. You are so fucking dead. I wish I had anything interesting to say about the first half of this chapter. You go through a gray town, shooting random foreign rebels with your army as they push through. It's the most generic cookie-cutter shooter game level you can picture. There's one bit that's a tad on the infuriating side. There's a section where you're about to enter a room above a bridge, and right before you do, the bridge is destroyed and you're attacked by this gigantic BOW called an Ogremon, and forced to temporarily flee. The game doesn't tell you this, but you can go back to this area right after the encounter, still cross the bridge, and open up that room. This is where you get the shotgun for Chris, and there's a pretty decent chance you just entirely miss it, assuming you'll double back for it later or enter for somewhere else, only to get locked into the next area and unable to go back shortly after. And yes, doing this will magically add the shotgun to Chris's modern loadout as well. Guess he just forgot he was carrying it somehow. In the next location, an abandoned rail yard, the game doubles down on the fact that it's a mediocre shooter by having you defend an NPC while they plant C4 on something. And it takes Finn fucking centuries to set this bomb up, so get comfy. I don't know a lot about explosives, but wouldn't it have been easier to just blow a hole in the thing? Or go over it? You guys are professional soldiers, right? You couldn't fucker this one out in a less cumbersome manner? Whatever. It got some troops up ahead who are trapped and injured on a suspension bridge. While Chris runs across the bridge to help the survivors, Piers takes cover in a nearby building and gets back on sniping duty. God, this part is not fun. The bridge is so wide and open, and you've got a dozen enemies shooting at you all at once. If you take one too many bullets in a row, Chris does this dramatic fall backwards, so running through them isn't much of an option. Chris and Finn get the injured agents off the bridge, and Piers climbs around to meet back up with them.
Sherry Birkin, National Security.
Sherry Birkin, you were in Raccoon City.
How do you know that?
Claire,
Wait, are you Chris?
my sisters told me all about you.
Chris, the man is a wanted insurgent.
Yes, he's a mercenary, but right now he's under the protection of the US government. He's no threat to the PSAA.
Unless someone pays me to be.
What did you just say?
What?
Nothing.
HQ to Alpha Team. Reinforcements are unable to land due to anti-aircraft artillery. Take them out.
Alpha Team copy.
Hey, other main characters! Sorry you have to be in this boring-ass mission. We'll talk about Jake and Sherry when their time comes. Let's just focus on the present. At present, 2 of these enormous BOWs are dropped in and things aren't looking good. But this is another one of those cool 4-player bits. You know, if you're lucky enough to find another team. What you're meant to do is clear out the areas around the AA guns in the square. Finn will destroy them, and once they're gone, a team of aircraft can swoop in and kill the remaining Ogremon. However, doing this will end the sequence and trigger a cutscene. If you're feeling more dangerous, you can take out the giants yourself, which will net you a ton of points to spend on skills. To defeat an Ogremon, you just have to deal enough damage to bring them to their knees, then hurry to a nearby building and leap onto its back. Your character can then rip out one of its spikes and jam it into the monster's spine, which, while it does a lot of damage, you'll still need to do it multiple times. After the airstrike completes and things calm down, a transport chopper is called in for Jake and Sherry. With another second to look at him, Chris notices something about Jake that bugs him.
Hey. Hey! We met?
No, you jarheads all look the same to me, pal. Sorry.
You've got to be kidding me.
My mistake. Have a safe flight.
The BSAA's mission isn't quite complete yet. The squad enters City Hall only to find a series of rooms populated only by dead human bodies, covered in some sort of yellowish-green ooze.
Captain.
Sea virus. That's what the guerrillas were calling it. Nice to see the cavalry's here.
Who are you?
I work here. My name's Ada Wong. They held me hostage.
Didn't expect to see you here. Chris's lack of reaction must mean Leon kept all his encounters with Ada secret, even from fellow protagonists, presumably to protect her from government intervention. She is a spy with dubious morality, you know. This is why Ada is effortlessly able to convince Chris she's some kind of random researcher and needs to be escorted out to safety.
Roger!
Piers.
The woman, she's gone. Finn! I don't know what happened. She was here a second ago.
Thanks for the escort. Here's something to remember me by.
Captain, we gotta move. Now, we gotta go!
Back in present-day China, Chris becomes consumed with anger towards Ada and immediately begins an angry murder spree to hunt her down despite Piers' protests. Someone get this man a boulder to punch so he calms the fuck down. There's like a section with a helicopter and a grenade launcher, cause every game on PS3 was contractually obligated to have a helicopter boss fight. But eventually Chris and Piers get to another multi-story building full of shops and offices. Chris and Piers regroup with some more soldiers, and that can only end well for them. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's about right. Chris becomes increasingly incensed as one by one his fellow soldiers are picked off and continues to charge blindly around the building in an attempt to kill that giant snake creature. Eventually, he and Piers are able to run it into a trench with exposed wiring and fry it up real nice.
I'm not gonna rest until we have her head on a stick.
This is crazy. It's not safe in here. We need to pull out. Captain!
Looking for me, boys? Welcome to China.
Ada! Wait!
We've got no choice. We have to kill him. He'd do the same for us.
Marco!
My son, Marco. He's in the PSAA. You watch. He'll be here with the whole army any minute now.
Oof. Sorry about this one, Marco. I'm sure this whole thing is going over well with Chris.
Chris, we need to stay calm.
After what she's done to us, how many of our men are dead because of that bitch?
I'm right there with you, Captain. But your personal vendetta isn't gonna get us anywhere. If you hadn't been blinded by vengeance, we could have prevented some of those deaths.
Shut up.
Do you even care about our mission anymore?
Shut up!
I feel sorry for all the men that died believing in you. What happened to the legendary Chris Redfield, huh? What happened to you? It's a good thing Finn's not around to see you this way.
I'm going after Ada.
I'm going with you. Someone's got to keep an eye on you, whether you want them to or not.
Surprise, fuckers! You've been bamboozled. You thought I uploaded a video that was less than an hour long. Well, you were wrong. This video is actually over 2 hours long. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, my editing software doesn't seem to be able to push out the entire video without intermittent green screen flashes and other visual artifact nonsense. So I gotta split the thing in 2 halves. Don't worry, this isn't gonna be a longer wait or anything. The entire video is finished. I just have to upload the 2 pieces separately. I guess this also makes for a slightly more digestible viewing experience. Second half should be up in a day or 2, don't worry about it. Then it's on to Mega Man Battle Network 4. I know you're all waiting for it. Thank you as always for watching. Remember to like and share, subscribe, and all that stuff that really helps me out around here. And with all that being said, thanks again for sticking around, especially through these giant month-and-a-half long hiatuses, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.